Hi guys, how you going? I hope everyone's well. This is Mr. Miller here, checking in on you and giving you the lowdown on the brass section. I think we've already done the woodwind with Mr. Muldrick or something, so we're on to the brass now. The brass, for the purposes of Cat 1, is divided into 5 instruments, and maybe you can even start to match the names of the instruments with the pictures right now. Maybe you even play one of them. They are well, they do have some general characteristics. The buzzing of the lips rather than blowing to produce a sound. Unlike the woodwind section, you do need a different type of embouchure, a facial shape, and I will show you what that looks like next up. The instruments do have a curved hollow tube, and they curve differently depending on the instrument, and they all have a bell at the end, and you can see that they all do have a wide sort of opening going in to the instrument, and that's where the sound comes out. In an orchestra, they produce probably one of the most obvious sounds. You can hear them over the rest of the orchestra, even in those really high dramatic moments. You'll be able to hear a brass instrument of sorts because they are designed for that. And if everyone can cast their mind back to the Moldau when the fox hunt first took off, we can all notice the difference quite quickly because of that French horn coming in, and that French horn made the change to the fox hunt quite obvious. So that's the brass, and that's why it's used, and it's quite often used in those big climactic moments for that effect. You won't hear the brass maybe as much in a double P moment, a pianissimo moment, but you will definitely hear it, most likely, definitely, in a double F moment. The embouchure for the brass is very different. Obviously, we're not just blowing into the instrument as we would a clarinet or a flute. We do have to position our lips accordingly, as you can see up at the top of the screen. A bit like blowing a raspberry. I've been told by trumpet players. I do play with trumpet players as a jazz musician, and they say it's a bit like blowing a raspberry. A bit like vibrating the lips, producing a vibration first before you then blow into the instrument. The bugle is the first up, guys. It looks a little bit like a trumpet, I know, but you'll notice that it doesn't have any keys. And that's because those facial positions, as you can see up top, are even more important for the bugle because that's how you change note. The player changes notes by altering that tension in their lips. It's often used in the military. Please go to the links that I give you in this PowerPoint and in the lesson plan, and you'll see, you'll hear a very famous tune that we as proud Australians hear once a year. The trumpet does have the valves. It has 3 of them, and those 3 valves, as you can see, when you push them down, they alter the length of that tubing and therefore change the pitch. I've got 2 links for this, guys, because the trumpet is very, very common in classical music, but as I said, it's also common in jazz music. The top one is an example of classical music, and the bottom one is an example of jazz. Please forgive the sound quality of the second one. It is from the 1950s, but it's with the great Miles Davis, and I simply can't resist him. So please listen to both, and do check out the embouchure with Mr. Davis. You can see his facial positionings and everything just to sort of produce the sound. It's quite interesting to watch Miles Davis.